This is a third instalment in Hachette Partworks DC Heroes and Villains collection. It's a nice little hardcover, just like the other issues. It came free with the purchase of the second issue, but you can buy it on its own for just $9.99. It's a tenner and it's well worth the money. It's a collection of Alan Moore's Superman stories and a story by Neil Gaiman, and it has artwork by Dave Gibbons, Rick Veitch and Curt Swan, which is all very good. First story up here is the actual Superman annual for the Man Who Has Everything. It's a terrific wee one-off story. It's set around Superman's birthday, and he has Wonder Woman, Batman and Robin coming to visit him for his birthday, because that's the thing superheroes used to do back in the day before things got really dark and grim. And it turns out that Mongol has already arrived and given him his birthday present, which is this little parasitic creature that attaches itself to the body and it gives you your heart's desire. You get to see what Kal-El's actual heart's desire really is. You get to see what it's like inside his head. It's like the ultimate prison that it locks you into, one you never want to escape from. And it's a great story. It was adapted for the animated series as well, and it really is worth checking out if anybody's interested in continuity and where it fits in. Doesn't really matter. It's got a kind of like a Silver Age meets Bronze Age kind of feel to it. Dave Gibbons' art is just classic artwork in it, and it's the kind of thing that Alan Moore could do, which he doesn't generally do now, which is like one-off single stories that really deliver. So yeah, it's worth having this collection for this story alone. Next up is DC Comics presents number 85, which is one of those team-up books that they used to do so well. In this one, it was Superman would team up with somebody new every month, and this is a one-off story where he teams up with Swamp Thing, who was being written at that time by Alan Moore, so it only made sense that Alan Moore would do this story. And also Rick Veitch, who did the artwork, was one of the regular artists on the Swamp Thing title as well. And again, it reads kind of like an EC sort of horror tale or science fiction tale. The idea that Clark Kent or Kal-El gets infected by some alien spore, and it takes its toll on him as the story progresses, and Swamp Thing has to intervene and help him out. This is the second Alan Moore story in here. It's the second one that has Superman being infected by some alien life form, and it's a good one. It's got a nice kind of old EC Comics feel to it, but at the same time that kind of 80s sensibility that Moore and Veitch were bringing to the Swamp Thing comic. Next up is Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, which is a two-part story that ran across the last issue of both Superman and Action Comics, or at least the last issue at that time before they eventually renumbered them and then went back to the legacy numbering and then or whatever they've done since. But as it stood then, the idea behind these two stories was that it was a capper on all the Superman stories from Silver and Bronze Age up to that point, and John Byrne was going to start a revamp of the Man of Steel in the 6-part miniseries The Man of Steel, and then take over the Superman comic and Action Comics, starting them at issue number 1 again. So the whole point of this story was for Alan Moore to come along and give us like a really nice capper to what Silver Age and Bronze Age stories were, but at the same time imbue them with that modern sensibility that he was famous for bringing into comics at that time. In other words, this is where the light of the Silver Age meets the dark of the modern age, and it's really well done, and it's drawn by Curt Swan, who of course is a classic Superman illustrator, probably my favourite Superman artist of all time, definitely the one who drew the most Superman comics, at least in my childhood. The inks by George Perez give it a kind of a modern sheen for the first issue. Kurt Schaffenberger does the inks on the second issue, and this second issue really looks old school Silver Age. The actual storyline, quite dark. Villains that we're used to in the past has been just goofy villains, come out here has been really quite dark and insidious, and it's very much the modern, I say modern, 80s take on superhero comics. These two issues really do stand alone in continuity, and that's no bad thing. I always think that if a story is good enough to tell and it stays true to the character, then the continuity really should be able to bend and make way for that story. And that's what they do with these two stories here. This is old school Superman editor Julius Forge that oversaw this and gave the job to Alan Moore. And Alan Moore introduces it as an imaginary story, but aren't they all? Approach it that way and you'll have a lot of fun. The next one is a bit of a strange one. It's The Legend of the Green Flame, Green Lantern Superman team up. It's written by Neil Gaiman and it's got an army of artists working on it, and it was originally supposed to be published in Action Comics Weekly, and this never happened because continuity was changed and this story no longer fit into continuity. The problem was that the DC continuity had been changed and that Superman's identity or secret identity was now known to very few people, and it was no longer known to Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern. So this story didn't work within that continuity. It's never actually printed in Action Comics Weekly. Neil Gaiman got paid for it, but it was put aside. And there's a nice text piece at the back that Neil Gaiman wrote for when it was released as a one-shot, where he explains all the ins and outs of that, exactly what was happening with the editors at the time. Yeah, it's good fun. It's got lots of interesting artists working on it, and it's got all the characters who were in Action Comics Weekly at that time making little cameos. Characters like Phantom Stranger and Deadman popping up for a few pages of the story. So that's the story that ends this collection. It's a good collection for a tenner. You're getting some great Superman stories by Alan Moore and a no bad Superman story by Neil Gaiman, and some nice little extras at the back, putting everything into context of the time they were written. What is really good about all these stories is they can just be read as standalone Superman stories. So this has been DC Heroes and Villains Collections number 39 according to the spine, but it's just the third one that's been released, and it's for the man who has everything and other Superman stories. It's a really good collection of Alan Moore stories. I would have bought it on its own if it wasn't part of the collection. Next up, it's Wonder Woman Down to Earth, and it's a Greg Rucka book, and I did read the first couple of issues of this when they first came out, and they didn't do much for me, so I'm going to be revisiting those, and I'm going to be sticking with it to read the entire book, and I'll be reviewing that next on my channel. So please subscribe, and if you wouldn't mind giving this video a wee like, that's much appreciated. And my journey with the Hachette Part Works continues unabated.